Hello, my name is Alan Shires. So as an actor, I found myself amongst a very small portion of people in the UK who solely acted for a living and paid the bills by doing it. So in 2020, I came before the Lord in gratitude. I would thank Him so much for my career, and I was very blessed and still am very blessed. What was interesting is that there was still something which was lacking. I felt very unfulfilled, even though I was doing a job which was fulfilling. I know that sounds crazy, but something was missing. I was filming every week for big brands like Starbucks, Samsung, LG, Nescafe. All of these companies I was working with and working for and paying the bills and feeling quite satisfied as an actor. So when I was on my knees and I was praying to the Lord, what I recognized was that He wasn't in any of it. So even though I had a great job and it brought me a lot of satisfaction, there was something missing, and that was God. So I said, Lord, thank you so much for my career. Thank you for this job. Thank you that you're utilizing my talents and I get to work in an industry that I enjoy. But I need you to come into my career now. Initially, He told me to start a podcast. When I felt that prompt, I ran 1,000 miles. If you imagine a cartoon character when they run away and there's like that cloud-shaped silhouette, that was me. The idea of starting a podcast was not attractive to me at all. I helped a client with their podcast. I knew how much hard work it was. Nobody likes hard work, right? I was out. So 6 months went by, and then my wife, she comes up to me and she says, hey, Alan, if God told you to start a podcast, you should really do it. I chatted to people in the industry, I prayed about it, and what I really felt like is that the podcast needed to be about two things. It was named Faith and Famous, and the first point of the podcast was to put Jesus back in the center of Hollywood, because we sure know He's not there at the moment. And the second purpose of the podcast was to help Christian actors recognize that they do not need to conform to what Hollywood wants them to do to get ahead, but instead, by staying in alignment with what the Lord has called them to do and staying true to their morals and their convictions, they are actually in the best position they can be to accelerate it forward in their lives and into what God has called them to do. So I started this podcast. I'd watch Christian movies and Christian TV, to which there was not much of in the UK, and I would write down the names of people in the credits, and I would find them on social media, I would add them as friends, and I'd try and get them on the show so I could interview them. And it was great fun. And then one day I learned about this group of brothers called the Kendrick Brothers. The names were fairly new to me. I recognized some of the work, and I reached out to their media team and said, I'd love to interview them. This is what I'm doing. This is what I'm about. This is my reach. And the answer was no. So being kind of a tenacious guy, and struggling to take the first answer as the final answer, I said, well, when can I write back? They say, you can write back in the summer. Write again in July. And I'm like, great. So I prayed and I asked the Lord to help me get these guys on the show and that they could come on in the summer. And actually, because it was my birthday in July, I said to the Lord, this can be my birthday present from you this year. Let me interview these guys. I think it'd be great for the audience. They have a lot to invest, and I think it'll be of a real benefit to the audience. So it gets to the beginning of June, and I write to the media guys again, and this time the answer is yes. I was like, thank you, Lord. So I interview Stephen and Alex, and then after the interview had finished, we're just chatting, enjoying a brief moment of online fellowship, and Stephen invites me to the Christian Worldview Film Festival in 2023, to which I said to Stephen, I can't come into your country because COVID law prohibits UK citizens from being able to come into the US. And Stephen said, well, it's a good job that we have a God who does miracles. And that really stuck with me. So I began really exploring this because I wanted to accept his invitation. I wrote to the CDC, I wrote to American Immigration, and they shared with me that there was a means of getting an exemption to that rule if the UK side deemed me as somebody who would be eligible to come to the US. I began writing to the health institutions and the parliamentary officers, and everybody just said, there's nothing we can do, it's up to the US. So both countries were kind of blaming each other, and I was like, this is insane. So in the end, I wrote to my Prime Minister and Sure enough, it landed on the health secretary's desk, and she ordered that an exception letter be written for me so that I could travel to the US. There are 66 million people living in Britain, and I was the only person to have that letter. My wife wanted to come with me, and she tried following all of the same steps and was blocked every step of the way. So we wholeheartedly believe that the Lord had created the opportunity for me to come to the festival. I went home after the festival, told my wife all about it, and then she turned around to me and said, "When are we moving?" It didn't take any prompt from me. She really felt like the Lord was calling her to come with me and our daughter to the US. We applied for our visas, and then I get a phone call from a faith-based director out in Dallas, and he offers me a role on a TV series called Vindication. And he said, "When you're not in front of the camera, I'd love you to be behind the camera as one of our set chaplains and in a variety of other roles." So I accepted that offer, and I'm looking at the calendar and I'm like, oh boy, I'm going to be back and forth in the US a lot here. And then Stephen calls me and asks me if I will be a shadow chaplain for the filming of The Forge. And I'm like, what do we do? And we make the decision to move. We put the house up for rent, and literally within 3 weeks, we'd cleared out 12 years worth of belongings, got rid of a car, filled 3 suitcases, and left 31 years of life behind to start again fresh in the US, because that is what we believe the Lord was prompting us to do and calling us to do. When we came here originally, we thought we were moving to Dallas. And when we got to Dallas and we were filming Vindication, the Lord said to me, I believe he said to me, you can stay in Dallas if you want, or you can go to where I've called you. I recognized that if he was calling me to something, then there was something way better for me in Albany. And I'm 9 months later really seeing the benefits of that, because Albany, the city, the friendship group that I've gathered, this church, I've really seen the benefit for me personally, spiritually, emotionally, practically, but also for my family as well. So grateful to the Lord for being here, grateful to Sherwood Church, grateful for the leaders who are so faithfully stewarding all of this. Not everybody is called to cross seas or to end a fantastic career in one country and move to the next. Not everybody is called to start a podcast, but what I would encourage you to do is, in every area of your life, be sensitive to the Lord. I believe that the Lord wants to work through our workplaces. He wants to work through you, regardless of whether you're an employee or the employer. And if the Lord is calling you to do something, to make a change, to reach out to a person, I say do it, because I can testify, as challenging as it was the best thing we have ever done. And we're so thankful that the Lord gave us that opportunity.